Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Wine Thursday. This is Francesco Garuglieri, as always. Today, as you can see, we started a little bit later. Of course, we didn't want anyway to give up on this beautiful appointment that we have since more than 1 year now at this point. So we anyway wanted to make it, and we decided to postpone it at 7:45. I hope, of course, it's going to be fine for the people that usually interact with us during the live. And anyway, I would like also to say hello to all the people that are going to watch the replay of this live stream. Anyway, today we're going to discuss about Gran Selezione. We're going to talk about Gran Selezione, and we're trying, first of all, to figure it out what it is, Gran Selezione, what's the difference between Chianti Classico, Riserva, and the actual Gran Selezione. And then we are going to taste and describe, or at least we're going to try to go a little bit more into the detail of our new Gran Selezione vintage, which is 2013 actually. And so we're going to analyze that specific wine. Anyway, before we start, of course, as always, I hope that you are doing very well. I hope that you're doing fine. And of course, if you have any kind of question, any kind of dab about this topic or other topic that of course you want to discuss about the word wine, just of course you can just leave a comment, and of course I will be super happy to answer to you. So first of all, let's start to define what it is Gran Selezione. In February 2014, actually, the consortium of Chianti Classico had this new level to the pyramid of quality of Chianti Classico, which is Gran Selezione. So from that very specific moment, we started to have on the very top of the pyramid of quality the Gran Selezione. So on the base, we have the Chianti Classico Dannata, or Chianti Classico entry level, Chianti Classico Base, or Chianti Classico Standard, whatever you want to call it, is still the Chianti Classico, the base wine. And then you have Riserva, and then you have now the Chianti Classico Gran Selezione, the first vintage that the wineries that are part of the consortium of Chianti Classico that they can consider as a Gran Selezione. It is the 2010, so you can find, if you want to go back to go back in time, and if you want to look for older Gran Selezione, the first vintage you can find categorized as a Gran Selezione is the 2010. But anyway, even before, you had certain kind of wineries that were producing the same kind of idea of Sangiovese, very well aged, and with all the kind of characteristic that we are expecting now from Gran Selezione. The point is just that in 2014, in February of 2014, they tried to categorize a highest level of Chianti Classico, a highest level of Riserva, top level Riserva. That's the pretty much the idea. And let's try now to analyze the differences between the Annata, the Riserva, and Gran Selezione. So first of all, Chianti Classico d'Annata, it's a wine that you can put on the market after pretty much less than 1 year. Actually, if we want to quote the actual law, it is just saying that you can put on the market the Chianti Classico after the 1st of October of the year after the harvest, basically 11 months. And the requirement to be categorized as a Chianti Classico entry level, as a Chianti Classico d'Annata, it is not only the aging, but also the specific organoleptic parameters. So, of course, we are DOCG. As you can see, we have the DOCG band, of course, on the Chianti Classico bottle. And, DOCG, it means that the wine not only are going through laboratory tests, they're tested, of course, in the laboratory to be categorized, but also they go through a blind tasting process, and some wine expert, enologists, and so on are going to categorize your wine as a Chianti Classico, Gran Selezione, and of course Riserva, actually as a Chianti Classico, Riserva, and Gran Selezione. So for Chianti Classico, the entry level, as we said, is of course, less than 1 year, 11 months, and then specific organoleptic parameters. Then we have the 80-20 rule, so minimum of 80% of Sangiovese, 20% whatever you want, but it could be an international or national variety, but it should be a red grape variety cultivated in Chianti Classico area. So it's not something you can, buy from a winery that it's not, part of the consortium. Of course, there are bigger wineries. Of course, in Montemaggio, we are not buying from others producers, but when it comes about bigger wineries, of course, sometimes they can source the wine from other producers, and then of course they can maybe do some kind of like assemblage blend with some other kind of type of varieties, type of wines, and so on. But anyway, the point is that in the Chianti Classico blend, is not allowed use of the white varieties. It's not something you can do. When it comes about, of course, the Riserva, we are going to analyze, of course, a wine that is a little bit different. First of all, the minimum of aging, actually the minimum of refinement, is 24 months. And then, of course, even here, and actually here it's even more important, and it will become more and more important as we scale the parameter of quality of Chianti Classico. Here we have this law of the specific organoleptic parameters that we are going to see in a minute. Of course, we're going to have certain specific organoleptic parameters for Chianti Classico and certain organoleptic parameters for Riserva and others for the Gran Selezione. When it comes about Gran Selezione, it's like the concept of coup in France. I'm sorry for my very bad French accent, actually, but it's a wine that it could be produced from a single specific vineyard, or it can also be the selection of the best grapes from the best vineyards of your winery, of course. Then, of course, in this case, you're not allowed to buy from other sources. You cannot buy from other wineries. It should be something that it's coming directly from your own vineyard. Again, we are not buying Sangiovese from anybody else in Montemaggio, but of course, it can happen. Some bigger wineries need that because, of course, the more, the bigger you are, the more focus on, quantity. It can happen that you are, of course. So as we said, single vineyard or the best selection of the best grapes from many different vineyards, or at least the best vineyards that you have in your winery. Then 36 months of refinement and aging minimum, and then you have very rigid parameter organoleptic parameters when it comes about your organoleptic profile of the wine. Let's analyze now the parameters that we are looking for in a Chianti Classico. Chianti Classico Dannata, we are looking for something that should be immediate and very fresh. Then we want, of course, to find these intense notes are fruity, then, of course, floral component. And you have, of course, this idea, sometimes, that it's like summarized like cherry notes and viola mammola, violet. But of course, it could depend also from one area to another. Of course, if you go in Gran Chianti, when it comes about me, for example, the Chianti Classico from Gran Chianti, you have this kind of iris perception when it comes about the floral component. When it comes about Montemaggio in general, Red and Chianti, I perceive more like violet, I would say. And that's pretty much the idea. It's also something personal. What about the, let's say, consume the purpose that you're looking for a Chianti Classico Dannata? Well, you're looking for something that it could be consumed on a daily basis, and it's something that could be also matched with the not very well structured kind of recipe, and in general not very complex kind of recipe. But of course, it depends also from winery to winery. Certainly, It's true that it's a wine that don't have, that kind of complexity that then, for example, Chianti Classico Gran Selezione can have. That's pretty much the idea. Let's analyze now Riserva. So Riserva, you're looking for structure and elegant kind of wine. The bouquet should be very fine and complex, and it's a wine that you want to match with some kind of food that are way much more complex compared to a Chianti Classico and very well structured. Now, let's summarize also what we're looking for in a Chianti Classico Gran Selezione, so a top level Riserva. So here you're looking for a great structure. Not only a wine that is very well structured, but it should have a very great structure and a great finesse, a great elegant component. Because should be very fine in quality, complex, and very diverse. You need to have a huge diversity in the aroma of a Gran Selezione and the aromatic profile of a Gran Selezione. When it comes about the matching, you want to match this kind of wine with, of course, super, very well structured and complex kind of let's say, recipe. And from my point of view, especially when it comes about the Chianti Classico Gran Selezione from Montemagno, I really adore the complexity that can match the complexity of food like, for example, game or wild boar in general. That's pretty much the idea. So that's summarized. This is, of course, pretty much what they are saying that they are looking for when it comes about the consortium of Chianti Classico, which is the government basically that is making checks and regulation when it comes about the Chianti Classico wines. Anyway, I spoke about the minimum requirement. Of course, for all the wineries there, then people are taking different kind of decisions. If you take Montemagno, for example, we are never going on the market before of 6 years, 5-6 years with the Chianti Classico. So now we have the 2015 out, but this is just our personal decision and personal let's say our characteristic. You need to know that with the acidity that we develop in the wines because of the colder climate and the altitude, we really need to wait a lot to get a wine to the point where we think it's his best moment. Our wines are wines that need times to achieve that kind of complexity and maturity that we want, of course. And it's again our personal choice. That's pretty much it. Of course, when it comes about Montemagno, you have, of course, very unique and particular terroir. And in general, every different subzone of Chianti Classico has its own identity. So we need also to consider that there are some subzones that are pretty capable to generate wine that are very good for longer aging process and that has very important longevity. Other subzone that has, of course, less capacity of producing wine, that it's really good for longer aging process. Anyway, now let's analyze in detail this Chianti Classico Gran Selezione. 2013, as we said, it's going out on the market now. And it's called Alberello, as you can read on the label. It's coming from our probably best vineyard, mainly the top part. And it's a vineyard that it's cultivated with Alberello technique. Alberello technique is a very singular kind of technique because the vines are growing like a small bonsai, like a tree, like a small tree. They are not attached one to the other. It's not like a wall cultivation, like it could be Cordone Speronato or Guyot. So they are not growing like on a structure, and they are not growing like on a wall. And pretty much the idea is that being not attached one to the others, they are not creating shadow for the vines that are, how can I say it in English? They are not creating shadow on the a vine is not creating shadow for the vines that is next to it, and the sun can penetrate a little bit better into the vineyard, and it's just like hugging basically 360-degree the plants, and of course the fruit is going to mature differently. Of course, especially from the top part where you have, of course, less water, the grapes are going to be smaller, thicker skin, and very beautiful concentration in terms of juice. Of course, that's what you're looking for when you want to create a wine like Gran Selezione. That's of course, what we were saying before, we want a wine that it should be great in structure, great, elegant component, and beautiful finesse. Bouquet should be very fine in quality and complex and pretty diverse. You need to have a huge diversity in terms of aromatic profile of this wine. Of course, something that I forgot to mention before is that since last May, so May 2021, we voted a law in Chianti Classico that, first of all, allow the creation of the UGA, Unità Geografica Aggiuntive, additional geographical unit, which basically means that now we really can talk about the different subzones in Chianti Classico, and we are now obliged, we need to declare on the label from now on the subzone where the Gran Selezione is produced. In our case, it's Radda and Chianti. And another thing that is super important to remember is that we also proved during the same voting session law that basically it's like revolutionary kind of law about the Gran Selezione. From last May 2021, we need to use at minimum 90% of the Sangiovese and only 10% of other grape variety, other red grape variety. Again, national or international. But in that case, it should be something that you produce in your winery. You cannot buy from other sources. Again, we're not doing that, of course. That's not something that it's in our philosophy, let's say. But let's try to go a little bit more deeper into the detail of this Gran Selezione. So this is a wine that, of course, I'm expecting, of course, to have a wine that is at the same time very, elegant, fresh, because of course it's coming from a cooler climate where you have anyway some kind of like beautiful verticality in the wine, very velvety, but at the same time, I'm expecting probably more crunchy tannino and a bigger structure compared, especially to the Chianti Classico. And on the organoleptic profile, I'm going to have, of course, beautiful, beautiful diversity, as we said. That's what we are looking for. So first of all, of course, during the tasting technique, we need to start from the looking. We need to start from the say pleasure of the eyes. We need to look at the color. The color, of course, is just telling me two very important things. If you look at the border on, let's say, on the external part of the wine in your glass, on what we call the nail, you can see it's a little bit much more granite, almost like orange brick color, because of course this is wine. It's a 2013. It's age. It's a wine I, of course, spent actually a long time also in the wood. 4 years in the wood, the rest into the bottle. It's going now out on the market, and of course it's 8 years. And actually, it's a wine that you really, it's actually going for 9 years, and of course it's a wine that it really took its time. Of course, I always say, if our wine don't have rush, why should we? That's the point. Anyway, you can see that from the nail, from the external portion of the wine in your glass. From the central part, you can see that the wine, of course, is telling you two other very important information. It's a wine that it's a Sangiovese, ruby red color. It's a Sangiovese in purezza, Sangiovese 100%, and it's telling you that this is a wine that it's coming probably from the very top of our vineyard, because it's a little bit more concentrated. Let's try now to analyze the organoleptic profile of this wine. Again, I'm expecting more complexity, more finesse, a wine that is fine in quality, and of course it will be something a bit different compared to Chianti Classico entry level, and also to Riserva under a certain point of view. Of course, the Chianti Classico has a different kind of purpose. Let's say, we said before, it should be a wine that it could be matched with a simpler kind of recipe, and in our case also wine that it's a little bit more versatile when it comes about those kind of recipe. Here, of course, we don't have anymore that kind of like cherry kind of notes that we can find in Chianti Classico and Chianti Classico entry level. I have, of course, much more like a dark fruit. I would say plum, not a dry plum yet. It's anyway a ripe fruit, but yeah, of course, it's not a dry fruit yet. Then I have certain kind of notes that are, related with vegetal aromas. Certainly, I have also like this fresh component that is coming up, and I perceive it like green grass after rainfall. Then I have, of course, this beautiful balsamic component, not like balsamic vinegar. Actually, it's like eucalyptus mint. This is something that is developed pretty much because of the altitude, the climate, and also the alberello cultivation. The vines are smaller. They are also pretty much always like in a beautiful contact, in a beautiful relationship with the soil. I have also these kind of like wild notes that are coming up. I have leather notes. You have this beautiful scent, of course, of a wine that is like maturing in a very beautiful, fine way. Earthy notes, some cinnamon. So it's a wine that has a huge diversity. Let's try now to drink it. Here, the tannin are very crunchy. You can perceive the crunchiness of the tannins in general, the tannins on the internal part of your cheeks. And it's very beautiful, the elegant component of those tannin, but at the same time, the crunchiness. Of course, you have on one side a crunchy tannin, and on the other side, you have also freshness. You have salivation that it's coming because that is happening because of the acidity. So you have anyway this great acidity, and that's the beauty of the duality of this wine. On one hand, you have the crunchiness, the crunchy component, and on the other hand, you have the fresh component. You have the minerality, the sapidity. The sip is very, full. It's a wine that is very, of course, important and round in your mouth. I'm sorry, but at the same time, it's not a wine that is overwhelming. It's very well balanced. Of course, with the aging process, the wines are going to be way more milder, very mild, very smooth, very balanced. The alcohol, of course, is there, but at the same time, you have this, very well balanced kind of perception when it's coming about the alcohol. So it's never overwhelming. It's one that again is very fine, very well structured, but very balanced. It's never overwhelming. The final step, of course, is to evaluate also the aftertaste. The aftertaste here is pretty long. It's a wine that I would say, of course, definitely, had a beautiful benefit from the aging process, and it's pretty long on the aftertaste. Very, again, well balanced also in the aftertaste. What can I say about the food and wine pairing? I already said it before. It's something that we really probably appreciate quite a lot with a wild boar game. It's a wine that has an amazing structure and an amazing complexity. So of course you need to find some kind of food, some kind of recipe that has matched the same kind of complexity, that has the same kind of complexity and rich structure and diversity also of let's say kind of like flavors, sapori. Anyway, so that's the beauty of it. Of course, this is our Chianti Classico Gran Selezione 2013, and as my manager Ilaria Nicchini said during the Venitali, you can find also the video on social media. It's a wine that you should drink now. It's a wine that it is in a very beautiful moment of his career, let's say, and of course it will be drinkable for probably, when I say drinkable, I mean ready to. It's a wine that is like in the perfect moment of and a perfect moment to be drunk, and it will be probably, it will stay in this condition for like 6, 7, 8 years, and that's the beauty of this wine. Anyway, for today it's everything. I hope, of course, of course, it was, let's say, informative for you, and you had, of course, a great value from the content we share with you today. And of course, for any question you have, just you can just leave a comment, or you can just let us know, even with a direct message. Of course, if you have any kind of topic that you would like to discuss in the next few live stream, again, let us know. And for today is everything. Thank you so much. Cheers, and see you next time. Ciao.